Hey, everybody. I think we do a podcast.
Hey, everybody.
Don, Jordan, welcome back to Command Value 1. It's been 6 months legit since we have sat down collectively and talked about gaming stuff.
Yep. Hopefully this episode will kind of energize us to get back to a regular release.
It's kind of crazy.
I don't even know you guys anymore.
It's kind of crazy that we had like this, massive pandemic that shut the country down, and all we've done is kind of sat in our hovels and worked on models, and we haven't bothered to talk about it. We've gotten a lot of games in though.
Well, some of us sat in our hovels more than others.
What are you saying, Jordan? Are you making fun of Don or me?
I'm saying I haven't made use of my pandemic time.
Oh, I know. I've painted more models this year, Jordan, than you've painted.
Wow. Probably. Yeah, I don't know if I did that. No, I think I'm getting that painted.
I've painted more of your models this year than you have.
That's not true. All the ones you've primed, I've painted over now.
Good.
Plus, you didn't finish those models, so it doesn't count.
I didn't, but you guys believed that I was going to.
You gave it a shot.
So April 10th was the last time we released an episode, and we did have a lot of craziness go on since then. So obviously, the world kind of shut down in March, and we were all kind of trying to find a way to do or play anything, and we all kind of gravitated towards Tabletop Simulator, and we did that. We did a few games of bolt action, and then we all ballsed up, and it was Swedish Patrick, Columbus Patrick, Josh, me, Gordo, and you, and we did a bolt action tournament via Tabletop Simulator. And of course, the Germans ruled supreme, if we remember correctly.
I think I was dead last, if I'm not mistaken. Not surprising, but yeah, I was dead last.
I was on the bottom side of the middle, I think.
The only game I lost was to Patrick, and that was literally it came down to about 2 dice rolls. It could have gone either way. If I would have blown up his Hanamag, or no, I think it was a truck. Because we played double envelopment for our last mission. If I would have blown up his truck, he would have scored nothing from that. But my Panzerfaust missed.
So we know Swedish Patrick is good, but I'm going to err on the side of Germany being OP, since you got that went that high up on the scoreboard.
Oh, whatever. And I just about played him to a draw. In fact, my strategy was to play him to a draw because I didn't bring any transports, so double envelopment was a screwed mission for me from the start.
No, I think you finally found your army, man. You've been doing really solid with Germans.
Well, with a name like Cybert, you got to be a kraut. So that was a good time. And then we kind of just forgot Tabletop Simulator existed. We played a little Gloomhaven on that, Jordan. You remember that?
Yeah, we were doing that pretty regular, and then you guys just kind of stopped showing up.
Don was never cool enough to play Gloomhaven with us, so.
Why didn't I play Gloomhaven?
I don't know, because you're a dick?
No, I think it was painting at night mostly, and just that was kind of worked out for my schedule.
So
painting work, not painting hobby.
Right. So after that, I'm sorry for this. I was stumbling around the internet, and I was thinking about Kill Team, and I was thinking about just something else because I wanted to paint something because I didn't have enough minis laying about. And I found a Attack on Xylos 2-player starter for Gates of Antares on eBay for $40. And it was like a $120 starter set. And I'm like, let's do that. And I got hooked on that hard. I started reading the rules for it before the box even got here. And I'm like, I was like, guys, you got to play this. You got to check this out. See everything we love about bolt action, but better.
Hook, line, and sinker. We all followed.
Yeah.
like mindless lemmings.
Well,
I must say
of course,
that one was a bit of a harder sell for me than it was the fantasy game, which we'll get into later. I don't know why.
yeah, but
Atari's like kind of dragged my feet a bit more on that one.
well, fortunately, you adopted a Swede, and he brought you an army. So
that's true. I actually haven't spent a penny of it on the game myself.
Sweet going away present.
So of course I fell in with I jumped in with both feet on that because I had the Gar and Concord from the starter, and as soon as I realized I really liked the game, I bought into Algorand too. So I have 3 full-fledged armies for that game, minus some of the bigger vehicles. Patrick went freeborn. Jordan, you went freeborn.
Mm-hmm.
Josh is thinking about parlaying his Warcaster minis potentially into something. And Don, you went to Isaurian because they look like HR Giger models.
Yep, that was 100% the selling point for me.
They all had like penises coming off of their faces and stuff. they're all like penis-headed chicks spread eagle.
Are you saying they're all eyesores? See what I did there?
I don't know why. This is left field. For some reason, I stumbled upon Red Letter Media had a commentary about Alien 3, and they went back to Geiger. I'm mispronouncing it both ways, I'm sure. But they went back to him for design considerations for Alien 3, and apparently he just like went nuts and had like a hypersexualized alien with like women's lips, and it was really gross and bizarre. And they're like, "Thanks, no thanks," and and ditched. Which I had never heard that story. That's probably been over a year. I bought the Alien Quadrilogy on Blu-ray, and that had been the first time I'd watched Alien 3 probably in 20 years. I watched the assembly cut, and it was far better than I remember it being. Partly because the assembly cut's a better cut of the movie, but yeah, it was just, I don't know, not my favorite Alien movie.
It cracks me up though that there's the one audio error in the movie that I don't know if it's just because the original is unrepairable or whatever it is, but there's a audio section in there where it's like very staticky. It's like kind of when somebody's mic kind of goes out or something for a moment.
Is that in the theatrical cut or in the assembly cut?
It's in every version I've watched. I've watched a couple different variants. So, but I actually really like Alien 3. I'm in the minority here, and I like Alien 3. And
well, like I said, the assembly cut I liked way better than the theatrical cut.
I was okay with it from the beginning. I didn't really kind of see what the stink was. I understand people like didn't want a couple of the main characters to die before even started, but
I think the problem was that. So it's not that they went a different direction, because I mean Aliens is a huge right turn away from Alien, but you know Alien 3 was then a turn back in a different direction, and I don't know if that was the problem. I think it's that Aliens was just like Alien is a masterpiece of horror, right? I mean, there's not another Alien. And on the other hand, Aliens is a masterpiece of science fiction action horror. So like the first one was so good. The second one was so good. The third one came out. So you're like, it's gotta be good. And it was just kind of like, yeah.
Who directed the third one?
Fincher. David Fincher? Is that right?
I mean, is that part of it? Because it was Ridley Scott and then James Cameron? And then some other dude?
No, it's not just some other dude. God, I'm gonna get the name wrong now. I think it's the same guy who directed Fight Club.
If only we were on
David Fincher.
So we could look that up.
I'm on my phone right now. Directed Seven, directed Zodiac, The Social Network, Gone Girl, Mindhunter, some House of Cards. He was no slouch. It was early in his career. Yeah, he directed Fight Club, The Game. I mean, he's directed a lot of really good shit. So it wasn't that. There was a lot of studio intervention. like one of the bizarre things about the movie is the original cut of the film, the alien came out of an ox. So it was really fucking big. And then in the theatrical cut, it actually came out of the dog. So it was actually smaller and squirrelier. But they'd already shot so much footage of them talking about how big it was. And then it wasn't that big. So it was just one of those weird things in the movie.
Okay.
Wow. Oh, we were talking about your Isaurians and Antares. I'm like, how do we go down that rabbit hole?
Yeah, it was definitely that sort of style that kind of brought me into wanting them, because I don't know what it is about the Antares studio painting. I feel like having seen the armies done in different painting schemes, not so much Isaurian, but a lot of the other factions, especially the Gar. I've seen the Gar in a few different painting schemes where that it's actually like made me think that they were cool, whereas before I was like, that is complete trash.
Yeah, I know you'd said that when you were like, I think those are stupid looking, and you saw them in person, like, I like those a lot better now.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's weird how a paint scheme can kind of do that for you, you know?
No, I get it.
I think it also has a lot to do with anytime you have something that's detail oriented, even if it's like kind of weird, stompy, robot-y, like the Gar, there's a lot of detail in those models still, and if you don't pull those out, then it just looks like a square on the tabletop. So
right.
So you're insulting the studio painters' abilities?
No, I'm saying
the
that
studio scheme for Gar is just so lazy, though. I mean, they're just white.
Yeah, I think it's just a point.
It's a bad choice.
It's not that they painted them badly. I just don't think that they were painted to complement the armies. What I would say.
Yeah. So I thought the Boromites were stupid, beyond dumb looking, but the more I look at them, the more I actually kind of like them.
Well, you should hit Warlord's Black Friday sale because they've got a big discount on a Boromite army.
I don't know if it's that big.
It's a decent discount. I may have spent too much money the last few days with Warlord because I went on to their Black Friday sale and I bought a couple of sets of Blood Red Skies dice, and then I bought an actual bolt action dice bag and another pack of order dice.
I will say that the bolt action dice bags, even though I feel that they're grossly overpriced, they are.
Well, they're like really half off with the Black Friday deal. That's why I got one.
Okay, all right, good. They are super nice bags, though.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's just a dice bag, technically.
Well, it's kind of a cornerstone of like the gameplay mechanic, though. You need to be able to have a big enough bag for the order dice to go into and swish them around to draw them out. And
yeah, it definitely does that. And plus, I like that you just draw the cord and throw it in your bag and.
Mm-hmm. So. No, and that was one of my favorite mechanics when we started playing with bolt action. I love that initiative mechanic where it's like, who's going next? I don't know.
Yeah, it is really cool. It can be a little lopsided sometimes, but I think
it can be demoralizing.
it's about as fair a lopsided rule can be.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's times it's like, Jesus, I just need an order die. I just got to do something.
Or you get all of yours right away, and then you're like, well, fuck, I have nothing to do with all these people.
Yeah. Yeah, but
sorry, you gotta throw a censorship on there. I said bad words.
I've already said bad words. I just assume we're going to be explicit anymore because I don't give a fuck. My kids don't listen to this, and if they do, they've heard me say fuck before. And then they've heard my wife yell at me for saying it, so they know they shouldn't. Checks and balances.
So you're only cussing to teach them a lesson.
Right. I'm swearing so they know what not to say. So yeah, Gates of Antares, that was getting that rule set in hand and seeing what I really do think is just a tweaked version of the bolt action rule set. I really liked it. I really liked the shift to a larger stat block for your units. I like the D10 over the D6. pinning was a lot more robust and interesting. I just think that all in all, it was a huge step forward for the rule set. If I'm not mistaken, Patrick's working on his bolt action version of it now, isn't he?
He is, yeah. He's sort of like importing the better portions of the. I think he's like went straight to
total conversion.
Arrowin's, that seems to be the best version of the rule set. So I think he's converting over from Arrowin, maybe.
Yeah, and we're kind of jumping around with that, but I know the conversation for Gates of Antares version 2 was basically Warlords of Arrowin. So,
and I will say one other rule I kind of wanted to point out too is the mod rule.
Oh yeah.
So one thing with bolt action that we all kind of felt sucked was you got your sweet big tanks, and then they had the one die syndrome.
Yeah.
Go out there, you shoot your big cannon and roll one and foobar, and you're hosed. So with the mod rule, if those haven't seen the Antares or even Arrowin rule set, is you actually are allowed multiple order dice for larger units.
Yeah.
So if
mod stands for multiple order dice.
Right. So if you crap the bed on the first die, you get another chance, hopefully.
Yeah. Some of the largest units in Antares have up to mod 3. So, and it's cool too, because then, usually those are vehicles that have the mod rule. And when you damage them, then one of the damage effects is to actually take a mod die from the unit. So it shows like damage and degradation to the unit as it's going along.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a nice, clean, good rule that makes those big point units
little sturdy,
more desirable. Yeah, I mean, if I had a Panther of mod 2, I would take a Panther in every list. Because it'd be worth it,
right? And not to draw away from the attempt at historical accuracy in army building for bolt action. So obviously that's an element that you have to keep within it. But this does kind of, at least, I mean, we're playing games here. We're not writing a history lesson here. So.
And bolt action doesn't sell itself as historically accurate. It sells itself as Hollywood war. And that's not to say that, models don't have some historical accuracy to them and that they don't put their work in telling the history of whatever theater book is coming out. But I think that's the mentality they have is, it's a game. Let's have fun. Let's have fun playing at war.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But if you're going to be taking something like a large-ass tank during a conflict, if all you had to worry about was potentially one damaging shot, maybe two, tanks wouldn't have been as imposing as they were during actual war. So this is where we kind of like the evolution of the rule set that Warlord brought in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely something I mean, there's been rumors about a bolt action version 3, and then Warlord says there's no such thing. So I don't know what the official goals or status are with that, but I would certainly hope that if there is a bolt action version 3, it's going to go down that path.
Honestly, I think what might actually be better for, I'm not to tie up the whole episode of Warlord, but one thing that might be kind of cool is you just adjust stats, even if they just wanted to do some PDFs of stat adjustments to play with some of the revised rule sets.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Official stat adjustments or whatever. So
yeah, honestly, it would not be a massive overhaul.
No, yeah.
To do it. But
I was thinking there was even rumors of a 3rd edition bolt action like way before COVID, like 2.5, like before we even thought about really getting into it.
I mean, before we got into it, I didn't follow it closely enough to know, but I know once I started getting the bug for it and joining the groups and following up on it, I had seen posts about it. So
my guess is just coming from like the thought process of a company is that got shelved pretty quickly with COVID because they had game releases coming out that needed their concentration.
Right.
More than, the rule set. So
well, and if you're in the Antares group, I want to say it's Tim Bradcup. He's one of the guys that writes for and with Priestley for Antares, and he's straight up addressed version 2 conversations for Antares in the group, and people who are part of that writing team have come on there and said, yeah, we're working on it, but it's all on the shelf because of our lockdown.
100%. Yeah,
and they're like, as long as the lockdown goes on, that's how much longer it's going to add. Yeah, we can work on stuff. Yeah, we can write stuff, but we can't really get much play testing done. And obviously nothing's going to go to a printer. So,
what's funny is that the issues with releases and things like that are actually going to be felt more as the things start to open back up again, because a lot of these companies are going to be honing in their resources on finishing projects that have been started already. That eventually they're going to get to a point where their pipeline is dry with new material.
I've been surprised. I know you said you didn't want to tie it up with Warlord, but I've been surprised with the Victory at Sea stuff's been at a steady flow for them. They got the core out. They got all the starter armies out. Then they got the sub and transport packs coming out. And then they already announced the Regia Marina on pre-order. So
a lot of that was plastics, weren't they?
Resin. It's all Warlord started doing in-house resin casting. So they're all resin. And not bad resin.
That actually brings up a point. Interesting to see that some companies are starting to go back into in-house casting. Looks like Privateer is going back to metals and resin. It's dumping a lot of their plastics.
So yeah, I guess like Blood Red Skies has gone almost entirely over to resin cast.
Yeah.
Because it started out, the core boxes were plastic, and then like my JU-87s are metal, which is fucking terrible for the flight stand system.
Even the flight stands are metal?
No, the flight stands are plastic, but you either have to use a regular flight stand and purchase basically like a washer to weight it enough so that it can tip from advantage to disadvantage and not knock the model over. Or you have to use the, I'm going to finger quote when I say bomber base, that is twice as long and really hard to kind of play the game around so it doesn't fall over.
So I'm curious to see if more companies don't start going that route, because I wonder if they're hitting the point where they're seeing the I'll just call it a single point of failure in the industry and relying on China and all these plastic manufacturing plants that even up to and leading up to the pandemic were probably at the point of they were already missing deadlines and things like that, because they were just taking on work and promising more than they could actually fulfill.
Sure.
And you take something like this, throw it into the mix, and and now all of a sudden everybody is hosed because one manufacturing plant can't produce.
Well, part of that too is you're talking about how many different product lines for these companies, and as sales going down a bit. I mean, once you have the molds, plastics last longer and you can make a lot more for a lot less, but it also costs like 100 times more to create the mold the first time around.
Well, I think that's especially when you look at Warlord going with the in-house resin casting, I think that's the key, is that I don't know that Blood Red Skies or Victory at Seas is going to be a AAA title for them. I don't know that there's ever going to be a justification to spend the money on the plastics for those games when they can just charge a little more and do them in resin.
Yeah, that's a good point too.
I think Bolt Action will continue to be plenty of plastic kits, and they'll continue to even take stuff that's been metal, and I'm still hoping for plastic Italians.
Yeah, there's a few other lines that that's probably like something else that they had to sort of put on the shelf was bringing more plastic lines in because they were talking. They actually had a vote.
Yeah,
so to speak.
Yeah, what I think there was a French partisan option, and yeah, there's a lot of options out there. And the Warlord plastic infantry kits are actually really nice.
Yeah, they do a good job on them. You get a lot out of them too.
Yeah,
I would say if you were creative enough, you could create, not have a repeat sculpt if you really pay attention.
I'm pretty sure most of my Germans are except for a couple of firing positions are vastly unique.
I went the lazy route, and
I know. I wanted to slap you for that.
I went for the quick route, and I was like,
your grenadiers offended me.
Yeah.
I just went for a random grab these arms, throw this weapon on, put this head on this guy, and figured that would randomize stuff enough.
I had randomized the faces at least, the heads.
Jordan's got a guy with a BAR on his back, a Thompson under his arm, holding the pistol. Looks like he belongs in a Medal of Honor game.
Right.
I think he's got a trash can lid on his arm too.
Right.
Well, getting back on track, when we got into Terry's, that was cool, and we ended up having, for Patrick's going away party, we went to Gordo's house, and what was it? Josh, Patrick, Jordan, Don, me, and Aaron.
Uh-huh.
And we played we played a lot of shit, really, but we did 3 rounds of Antares there. And I don't know, I found that to be a satisfying experience.
Yeah, it was very, well, I mean, it's casual as it could be, but it definitely, I think that actually was the first time I played.
Yeah.
Was it? Maybe I had played the night before. I don't know. Anyways, I had almost no experience going into the game. And,
well, you weren't that far ahead or behind anyone else.
Right.
No, yeah, I did, but because of the way we did it, it didn't feel like I was pressed to try and be an expert with the rules by the end of it.
I think you were one up on Aaron and
Josh.
But it was a lot of fun. And interesting to see the special rules in Antares is a bit more extensive than in bolt action.
Yeah, I'd say it is. I'd say that's true.
No, I wouldn't say it's too much. I would just say that it's more extensive. And I guess anytime you get into a sci-fi game, you're going to get that.
And it also... Oh, go ahead. Finish your thought.
I just say you just get to add cool shit that you can't exist in what would normally be a real life game.
Right. I like the fact too that so it doesn't try to be more realistic. It treats itself as a fairly hard science fiction, but weapon teams can still move and quickly deploy and use their weapons. I like that an advance doesn't grant you a negative for shooting. What an advance does is doesn't give you a bonus to shooting. So if you actually take a fire order, you get a +1. And it's just little things like that, little tweaks to the rule set like that I really enjoy. Mortars and overhead fire are much more useful in Antares than they were in bolt action.
So, with the varying armor values and even strike values.
Mm-hmm.
Not having the negative versus having the bonus, it kind of maths out to the same.
Don't get in here and math zone me, man. I'm too tired for that shit. You just let my simple brain enjoy the perceived benefit of getting a bonus.
Uh-huh. That's like saying 3rd edition 2-hit in D&D was vastly different than THACO in 2nd edition.
Hey, Don, do you know what THACO means?
Not a clue.
That's because you're not as big a nerd as Jordan and I are. Do you want to know what THACO means?
Sure.
Are you going to tell him, Gordo?
It's an acronym. It means 2-hit armor class 0.
Okay. Still tells me nothing.
So when you play Dungeons and Dragons, when your character in second edition Dungeons and Dragons, your character began with a base armor class of 10. Okay? So that meant that with no bonuses on a D20 roll, to hit armor class 0, you would need, if your THAC0 was 20, to hit armor class 0, you'd need a 20. So to hit somebody not wearing armor with armor class 10, you would then need to roll a 10 because you would subtract 10 from 20. So the lower, I can feel Don already getting pissed at us. Mm-hmm. The lower your armor class was, the harder you were to hit. So if you had a THAC0 of 20 versus armor class 5, you would need a 15 to hit somebody. If that person actually had like heavy plate mail on and had magical enchantments on it and had a -5 AC, and your THAC0 was 20, you would need a 25 to hit them. I'm watching the sound bar go across with like no hiccups where Don's just sitting there like, I fucking nerds.
So it was a bit. You strip everything else away. There was a bit of nonsensical subtraction versus they kind of just redid everything, turned the numbers upside down, and made it addition.
So armor class still started at 10, but adding armor increased your armor class. And then you just needed to beat the armor class with your dice roll.
Okay.
So that person of magical plate, instead of having an AC -5, would have an AC of 25. And you would need to beat a 25 with whatever appropriate bonuses you had to hit, which would be your attack bonus instead of a THAC0.
So getting rid of THAC0 got a lot of old grognards mad.
But mathematically, it was the exact same thing, just in an easier to solve math problem.
Well, yeah, I mean, anytime you can just say his armor is 25, that's what you need to roll. It's much easier to explain.
A good comparison would be for drop zone, getting rid of the armor charts and just adding 6 to the armor for everything.
Yeah, not having to look up charts and shit like that. I understand.
Yeah. So there you go. That's some old school D&D for you, Don.
Cool. It just made everybody fall asleep. Good job.
You know what? We talked about D&D for 3 minutes. It's not like we were on 3D printing for an hour.
Speaking of 3D printing, we haven't gone. We didn't add that to our list of things to talk about.
Oh yeah, because now we all fell down that well, and we all have 3D printers.
You were so bored and so that 3D printing discussion, that recording session, that you just went out and bought a printer the next day.
I don't think it was the next day, but it was a couple weeks afterwards. It was moreover because Josh was printing tanks, and I'm like, I want tanks. I went back and listened to that episode recently because I forgot what we had talked about. And I thought, it'd be good to refresh myself before working on some notes to start recording tonight. And can I tell you guys something?
You weren't as bored with 3D printing at the time?
Still boring.
Oh.
I'll agree with you, though. Like, sometimes things that are boring to talk about are interesting to actually do. In fact, I somehow get roped into a lot of those things as my hobbies.
Well, since we brought up the 3D printing, one of the first things I did with that, we all went together collectively to get some sweet ass World War II terrain for bolt action.
Good.
And I printed that big Atlantic Wall section. I built the D-Day board so that we could have a big D-Day game before the plague brought the world to an end. And you bailed on us, but we still got together and played, and none of us contracted COVID.
I don't know that it would have been considered a game. More of a slaughter.
Patrick defended the Atlantic Wall and just murdered the Brits and Americans. And I played a firefight game with George. George was going to try to take out the artillery battery overlooking the beach. And that did not go well for him.
Yeah, way to pick the noob as the person to defend him. A critical off-board advancement.
So I think the order dice breakdown was like he had like 9 veteran airborne versus my like 12 regular grenadiers.
Yeah, but I mean, motion of the ocean.
And here's the advantages he had. I pre-deployed, so I had my forces split into 3 separate groups so that I could try to defend whatever, because he could come on from any table edge. So I had to split my force to have a guard force in 3 separate locations so I could try to hold him off from getting in the bunker and blowing it. He chooses to come on across from my MG and charge it directly. And that was it. That was game. I'm going to come out of the woods and throw grenades at your machine gun, and I'm going to miss with every one of them.
So I was going to say, you're a gamer, he's not.
You know, here's the thing, though. Of the two of us, he was the one that's actually like put on 80 pounds worth of combat gear and been shot at in the Middle East. So I expected him to have a firmer grasp on tactics than me.
Well, we're talking about a game versus.
Yeah, I've it's been proven time again that like real life tactics don't always equate to wargaming. I
can tell none of your asses have read The Art of War.
I'll even double down on that. Having been a tournament paintball player, I would say that the gun warfare tactics of military and policing don't equate to knowing how to play a tournament, anything.
Well, I'm going to let you guys believe that, and I'm going to continue to apply my glond real world tactical knowledge in conflicts.
You just keep patting yourself on the back for stomping the new player. It's okay.
I will, and I'll keep patting myself on the back for stomping you too. But
he just won't do it very much,
right? You never come over and play anymore. So I will say though, it was nice to get that D-Day board built and out on the table. I thought it looked nice, at least.
It looked good from the pictures, even though I didn't get to see it.
It's still sitting on my shelf over there, just waiting for another opportunity.
Yep, could have played Sunday.
I couldn't play Sunday, Donald.
Could have played Sunday.
Yeah,
you could have come over Saturday.
I was free Sunday, Don.
Ooh. Plague bearer.
Right.
We should mention that Jordan quarantined because he had a close encounter of the COVID kind. But you seem to be okay.
No worse for wear.
You're a durable, strapping young man.
I suppose.
Did you get much painting done with your isolation?
No.
You're a bastard.
Watched a bunch of cool movies though.
Yeah. I've actually 3D printed more than I've painted.
Oh, okay. Well, you haven't even shown us anything. What the hell, man?
He doesn't feel the need just to show you everything he does with his 17 printers.
Yes, he must.
So there's some fantasy ruins / was it inn or a monastery I printed?
I think you printed the monastery because you showed it to me and I'm like, the what? And then you showed me that whole line of stuff that I'd missed.
And then I've printed a larger ruin, and then I'm printing corner pieces of, I think I've got 4 or 6 of those printed now.
That'd be a good Erwin table then.
Yeah. Well, that, and I could actually mix it up. I do have my thousands of dollars worth of
Dwarven Forge.
Dwarven Forge
Oh yeah,
that I could actually get out and assemble.
that is a lot of painting though.
No, that's
That Dwarven Forge stuff's painted.
Oh, did you get the pre-paint?
I got the pre-painted.
Okay. Well, at least you got
Like Jurassic Park, he spared no expense.
that.
Well, that's a nice segue, Jordan. That was the most fortuitous casual buy ever, I guess. I bought that Arrow One book and like, anyone want to look at this? And you all like freaked out.
I don't know that we all freaked out. I think someone that's gamed a while has, at some point, chances are they've done something with fantasy models.
Well, there's also hasn't been like a fantasy rule set that kind of accompanies that middle of the road model count. Because I mean, you had like what's the
Oathmark was like a big ranks game, and then you had Kings of War and
Kings of War is what I was thinking of, but then that's a lot of rank and file as well.
But Kings of War also had Vanguard, which was more of a skirmish game.
Oh, I didn't even know that they had that, to be honest with you.
Shows how much you cared.
Frostgrave's been around a while now.
Frostgrave is one of those games that's caught my eye a few times. I've just never jumped on it.
That's it's Warband though, so that's like low. That's
it's
that's
dozen
skirmish.
models. Yeah.
So that's something with heft, but not like 200 model count.
Well, and we can't forget the granddaddy of all hobby war games. I know wargaming's been around a lot longer, but the heroic scale, if you will. Yeah, chainmail. Well, actually, we wouldn't have 40K. Before that, we wouldn't have Warhammer Fantasy without chainmail.
Right.
Since Warhammer was created out of a need to have a rule set for models because Games Workshop lost the license for making official D&D fantasy miniatures. So
making D&D.
But between 40 years worth of D&D fantasy models now, never mind Warhammer Fantasy being kind of the granddaddy of this scale of wargaming so long ago, there's plenty of fantasy models at 28 millimeter, 25 millimeter to go around.
Sure.
Right. I was thinking more updated rule sets, I should say.
Yeah. Well, and that was the only reason I picked up that book I just want to kind of see what Antares 2.0 is going to look like. Was my thought process with it. And then Josh is like, sweet, I already have a Bretonnian army I can play. And Kirill's like, I've got elves. And you're like, I've bought an undead army. And all right.
Then you had to make fun of me and say, how many Bones Kickstarters have you done, Jordan?
Jordan's like, I have all the armies. I'm done.
Although it has a bunch of weird monsters, I don't know that I actually have a cohesive rank and file that much. But
I don't think that you do. But you ended up going barbarian, didn't you?
Yeah, there's some kind of Norse-looking guys that I had 20 metal miniatures in already of kind of a similar look.
I'm really trying to figure out how I can utilize my Wrath of Kings models into this rule set. I have the fifth guys, like squid looking dudes, and then I have the swordsmen with almost like I don't know, like horn, devilish looking masks and stuff like that. And they don't quite fit the
Check
armies
out
that
the
are out right
Beastmen.
now. I was thinking Beastmen, but because there are a couple like beast dudes, like horn dudes or whatever, but the rank and files don't really kind of fit that. But I mean, you're just putting numbers to models at that point, so it doesn't really matter too much.
And Priestley's got an unofficially official page where he's got like twice as many army lists available as there are in the core book.
Did you share that? I don't remember that.
I know Josh and I have both mentioned it a couple of times, but yeah, I can show you a link to it. There's like a samurai army, and there's an alternate orc army, and
okay, well,
there's a bunch of shit.
I need that information then, because I might have 2 more armies.
Well, and I bought gnolls for that. I bought 2 boxes of the Frostgrave gnolls, and honest to God, I built a gnoll army out of those 2 boxes, and it's like, ooh, that was hard. So I went and bought elves, bought a bunch of Oathmark elves, and
I went. I've always wanted to do an undead army, so that was actually another reason why I kind of like really snapped up on that rule set. So
yeah, well, that's why I was just like, well, I could do undead. I've got enough zombie side shit to.
I was like, nope, yoink, that's my army.
Well, I mean, you could say that, but I've still got enough zombies to field an undead army.
True, yeah.
But honestly, I got those Oathmark elves, and I had a few old Reaper elf minis I really liked, and I actually really like my elf army, and actually I think better than my gnolls, which I was really excited about to start painting. But we still haven't gotten that game on the table even. So
no, I mean, it's kind of one of those things where having played the previous 2 rule sets in that sort of trilogy of rules, you could just read the rules and already know how it's going to play.
Yeah, and how much regret are you going to have about, oh no, I purchased these fantasy models. There's not going to be any other game I'll ever be able to use these for.
Yeah, I'm. If it wasn't for my recent resurgence into Blood Red Skies, I probably would have bought a dwarf army already too. So just to have them. I told Jordan, I ordered some elves, and he's like, you ordered elves instead of dwarves, and thought I had been turned into a lizard person or something. I've had a long history of mocking both elves and gnomes relentlessly. So it was a strange choice for me.
We don't have a dwarf player at the moment, do we?
No. And see, there's I could have gone orc, no problem. I could have gone goblin, no problem. I could have gone. There's a lot of options I could have gone with and been perfectly content. But
I might go dwarf next. Who knows?
Well, so I was looking at the Oathmark goblins, and I started texting Jordan about some Tolkien history, and because I think I can actually play Oathmark orcs or Oathmark goblins more as orcs, because I don't like swarm armies, but I kind of like the models, and they look a little big for goblins. So,
oh, I got you. Okay. I was like that. Are they supposed to be like uber strength?
Well, and that's what one of the weird things about like Lord of the Rings, like orcs and goblins are, and Jordan knows way more about this than I do, but they're pretty much interchangeable in Lord of the Rings. So
if you've ever read Fellowship of the Rings, there's actually a line where Frodo gets told that I think it's when they first see orcs. The line goes something like, Bilbo called them goblins. Like it's explicitly they are the same thing.
Yeah. But I don't need another painting project right now. I need to get my table cleared. I've got too much shit. I've got a bunch of Algarin and Concord still up there, and I've got elves and gnolls on my table. And
I need to thank you or cuss you out for that question too, Derek, because after you asked me, I then I was looking stuff up at that time, and I fell into the internet at that point, and I think I spent 2 or 3 hours deep diving into the who's and whats of Middle Earth lore,
refreshing your once limitless knowledge of all things Middle Earth.
Right.
It's also a bit of a, I guess, touchy question in that there's always going to be some other nerd out there who knows just a little bit more. And be like, actually.
Right. Well, even when he asked me, like, it's been 15, 20 years since I read this stuff. But to my defense, it was more stuff not from the four novels everyone knows, but from the Silmarillion.
Well, yeah, I was asking you legit, like, I wasn't asking you like stupid plot questions. Like, I wanted to know bullshit about like the lineage of the kings of Gondor, because I couldn't figure out how Aragorn was a direct heir to the throne. And you're like, I used to know this. And I'm like, because dude's like 80 years old. How the hell is he a direct heir? What happened to, why are the Steward Kings there? And Jordan sighs.
So,
like he has to explain it to the simpleton.
So we talk about Aragorn being so old, but do you realize how old Frodo was when he left?
He was like 70 as well, wasn't he?
He was like 111.
I thought Bilbo was 111.
They both left home on the same birthday.
Frodo wasn't the same age as Bilbo, though.
So Frodo was the same age at the beginning of Fellowship of the Ring as Bilbo was at the beginning of The Hobbit.
Oh, okay, right. But Bilbo was like 111 at the beginning of Fellowship.
Yeah, maybe I'm getting confused here.
Yeah, he was like 70, and regardless. People lived a long time in Middle Earth. Simpler lives.
Yeah, sure.
No, people didn't.
Oh.
Numenorians and everyone that wasn't human did, but no, humans lived like 50.
Man, we sucked even back then.
But it was a good 50 years.
No, it wasn't.
Well, Numenorians were human. There just was only like 50 of them left.
Oh my God, let's go this rabbit hole.
What? You want to talk about 3D printing for another round?
We didn't even talk about that.
So let's see. We the last episode Jordan, Josh, and I did, we did that drop zone comparison. And I guess there was an errata release for Zone. I didn't even look at it. I saw it came out. I was at work when I saw it came out. By the time I got home, I forgot about it. Jordan, you looked at it. Did they change anything that was worth noting?
I looked through it. I didn't really do a bunch of comparisons, and I haven't played with it since, so I can't really say quite as much. I mean, I could open it up and see, but
I don't know. I think maybe it was something, if we want to get into that, we'll all go over it and be a little more prepared before we dive in.
I think they've done 2 sort of retweaks since you guys have played, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know. We'll see what happens when they.
I'm not. Again. As I say, I'm not in either of the official communities forum, so I don't really.
I will say that even with the changes, there were immediate questions of that needed clarity. So it wasn't. It wasn't.
It's the same level of cleanliness and tuning that we expect.
It just wasn't as encompassing. It didn't get rid of all the questions that were out there. So it begs to differ. Is the office okay with those rules as is? And they're okay with a bit of confusion on those because they like the way that they read, or are they just in a spot right now where they don't know how to kind of correct those without completely rewriting them? You know what I mean?
They answered the questions they felt comfortable answering, and they didn't want to misanswer something, maybe.
So I think that was, like I'm saying, like either they didn't correct them because to them it makes sense enough, or they didn't know how to correct them without a complete rewrite, and so they figured we'll just kind of sit on it for right now.
The reading through them, the one that did confuse me is they addressed the Valkyries. What's the special ability they have that can jump into a building?
Jump in, jump out?
No, it's not called that.
Rapid insertion?
Yes.
It's not called that. Are you sure?
There was the rule in version 1.1 was jump in, jump out.
Yeah. So rapid insertion. They addressed not getting the rapid insertion benefits if you don't enter by rapid insertion, because there's some confusion on what if a unit with rapid insertion just goes through the door normally? Do they still get rapid insertion? And the judgment was no. If they go through the door normally, they don't have rapid insertion.
How the fuck are you going to judge that?
Why would you
ever go in the normal way?
Right, exactly. At that point, you just never do that.
Right. I've got a jetpack. I will fly through the window.
Especially since rapid insertion 0 is a thing.
Right.
I mean, if you have the ability, you're going to go in that way.
And that kind of just creates more.
Like, here, let me handicap myself from this amazing rule that I have.
That's when, from a clarity standpoint, you say they always take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why?
It's old skimmer bonus. I didn't move, but I moved 6 inches in a circle.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, yeah. I can't think of an example of when you could, because it's pretty explicit about you have to be in a light drop ship to use it. Or aerial transport, I should say.
Well, even that's vague, though, because what if I'm in a bear in a condor and I drop my bear off my Praetorians and they jump out of it and rapidly insert from the bear?
They're not coming out of an aerial transport.
Yeah, but even then, that's stupid because they have breaching charges. It's not like they have to go through the front door. Hey, we came out of the bear with its sophisticated sensors that allow us to find the objective, and it says there's 2 destroyers behind that door. Well, let's not go through that door, Bob. Let's blow a hole in this wall and flake them bitches.
Mm-hmm. You know? I think it explicitly says there has to be a roof entrance or something like that.
No. That was old version 1 stuff.
Oh, all right.
No, version 2, you get to enter a building from any direction, not where there's an entrance at.
Okay.
Which
because version 2 was so focused on the idea of air quote streamlining that it went to vagueness, which doesn't streamline anything. It convolutes. I'm sorry, stepping off that soapbox before I stay up there too long.
Well, given that a window is an entrance to a building, rules-wise anyway, I'm kind of... When is omnidirectional entrances to a building? You have to be very picky about your modeling to say, oh, there's only these 4 specific doors on this building at these specific spots.
You guys put bars over all the windows?
Right. Or you have a building that has no windows on the bottom, I suppose.
The only time that ever came into question was when we were dealing with bunkers. At that point, you would be like, all right, it has to enter through the one door it has.
Yeah.
But if it was a structure of any kind, then like they're getting in somehow.
So in a nostalgic zone way, I got to play a little Blood Red Skies and Victory at Sea this past weekend. And Victory at Sea is the first time I got on the table. And I think I was starting to say this before we started recording. Mechanically, it reminds me a lot of Drop Fleet, but obviously streamlined because we don't have atmospheric layers and all that fun stuff. But as far as like throwing fistfuls of dice at long ranges and chewing up ships to critical levels and tracking critical damage across the vessels, those mechanics all struck me as similar.
Hey, once submarines come out, then you'll have layers.
I'm assuming so. So here's the one thing I don't like about Victory at Sea. It's prohibitively costly to get into. for a game that I'm not sure that I want to get that far into, right? So I bought this 2-player starter set. It was $80. It came with a little 30-page rule book. Turns out that's just literally a starter rule book. The rule book is $65. That is a lot for a rule book for me to justify paying.
Well, there's two cost points that kind of shot themselves in the foot over, from my opinion. One is they went hardback, no paperback, no digital right away with the rules set.
Yeah.
So that's why your price point is so high on that.
Well, and that was
when the modeling, the basing, the amount of resin in the basing for those ships so much that's where the cost of those models come into play, and not the ships themselves. It's all that just dense resin basing. And while modeled to look cool, I understand you want the waves and all that stuff in there. I mean, the height that the base creates sort of eliminates the illusion of the cool waves or whatever.
Yeah, it's not bad on the table.
Right, but it's not worth the extra cost of the resin for the effect that they were going for.
Well, yeah, that's my hard sell right now is because like with any of the games, if I'm going to get into it, I'm going to get into it 2 armies deep because I'm going to teach somebody else to play it before I expect anybody else is going to buy it, right? So I've got a start of a U.S. and a Japanese fleet, which means if I decide I want to take the next step, I'm buying the rule book at $65, and then I'm dumping another $260 into 2 starter fleets. At that point, I'm $300 in. That's really far in on the game for me. I don't play 40K for a reason,
Right, and then they're also hitting another roadblock too, in that because of that price point, you're seeing a lot of people just 3D printing.
Right, and I seriously thought about that. But so the one problem is that I don't have stat cards for all the boats, obviously, so I can't just be like, well, I'm just going to 3D print an Essex class carrier because I want to work with launch. Because there are rules. I like the way the aircraft carriers work, right? You have to roll a wind direction for the table so you can launch fighters. You have to turn your ship into the wind so that they can launch the wings and recover them. So it kind of dictates how you're playing the game based off of the weather. Stuff like that I like little elemental aspects that make it feel more realistic while still being a game.
Stuff you don't like is painting the wrong gray and not having the deck the right color.
So you were talking about grognards earlier. That joke comes back to I was in the Victory at Sea community, and I actually did paint tutorials for Paint All the Mini. I did fast and dirty paints on the Fletcher and Fubuki class destroyers. And yeah, I just painted my Fletcher's ash gray, right? I Googled Fletcher class destroyer and I found a picture of it. And I was like, it's fucking gray. It looks like every other boat from every other movie that you've ever seen. So yeah, cool. I'll just paint it gray, right? And it looks nice. And I posted up there and people were like, oh, cool. That is super easy. And it does look super nice. And I can't wait to see what the tutorial looks like because I might just follow that because, I just want to play my game with my little boats. And this dude gets on there and he's like I could see him pushing his glasses up and snorting as he stroked his neck beard and said, well, actually, and goes on this list, not just like talking about camo patterns and how the paint's wrong, but listing actual product numbers of paints that I was supposed to use to accurately paint my 1800 scale Fletcher class destroyer. And I'm just like, cool, dude, I painted mine gray. And like, he was indignant, right? He was like offended by this. And he's like, well, you can paint it however you want, but when someone's trying to help you, you should take the help. And I'm just like, here's the thing, Dick. I didn't ask for your help. And it's not help when you come on and come at me like you done fucked up, So
it'd be like if you're mowing your lawn and then the guy down the street who puts a pattern golf course style level, work into his lawn, comes over and starts giving you tips on how to,
So was it the same ship that got linked to Warlord's?
Yeah, I finished my flotilla of them and threw them up on my Instagram, and Warlord shared them
on their Instagram.
Yeah, I've gotten a few Warlord shares in the last couple of months. It kind of makes me proud after Don told me what a terrible painter I was.
I have never said that, you son of a bitch.
So what about you, Don? You said something about having a fever.
Fever?
A unicorn fever.
Oh, okay.
Fever night.
Yeah, so I've been doing a little board gaming. My neighbor and his son are getting into gaming. So they've been doing some board games and stuff, and then I'll eventually get them into buying plastic crack when things are available again. But
they all turn eventually.
So I kickstarted a game purely based off of the theme of it. It's called Unicorn Fever. At its core, it's just a horse betting game. There's like Camel Up and other games like that are essentially the same type of game out there. But it was like these super cartoony, I don't know, goofy ass unicorns instead of like regular horses or camels or whatever the hell it is. I was just like, that is hilarious. So I backed the game. It wasn't that much money. And I finally got that in the mail, and I was just like, I got to play it, of course. So I talked my neighbor into playing, and he brought his daughter over, which was actually kind of cool. And so we played a game of that, and it's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of replayability. The only thing I had an issue with was they sort of forced the 2-player rule changes in there, and having done like a quick demo game with my wife just so I can learn the rules myself, it was too predictable the way you were going to bet and place your cards and things like that in the game with 2 players.
I mean, wouldn't that'd be a hard thing to balance around.
It is. That's so. I mean, I like that it was cool that they did it, but I don't think that that's adding anything to the game.
Do you think they should have just said 3 players and up?
I think they should have just said 3 players and up. Yeah. It's cool that you can. It was a good enough change in the game that you could do a quick game to learn it with just somebody else at the house. So that sort of helped. But to play the game and actually have fun, you need at least 3 players because there needs to be some. The betting and the playing of the game needs to be spread out enough that you aren't 100% sure like what's going to be good and bad. So, but anyways, the essential gameplay of it is you have 6 unicorns racing down this board, and these sort of have like it's called a fever mode. So if they're worst ranked, they actually get like a little boost, which is a fever mode, and then they give them a little bonus to what they do. But then there's also these faction cards that you can buy contracts from, and they're like fairies and gnomes and goblins and witches and stuff like that. So it's actually really hilarious. And so the factions will give you, if you buy their cards, they kind of give you like a permanent or one-off bonus. But there's also magic cards in the game. You can place good ones on your unicorns you're betting on and bad ones on the other ones. And so there's that sort of like, and they're all face down, so you don't know if the unicorn you just bet a bunch of money on is going to do good or bad based on the amount of cards that's on it. So I don't know, I had a lot of fun with it, and I think the replayability is there. So, but if you already play a game like that, then I guess unless you really want something goofy like a unicorn racing game, it's not pertinent to go out and buy,
Does it bring you joy, Donald?
It did. I actually am looking forward to painting it because there are actual.
Oh, does it have minis?
It does have minis, yeah.
Nice.
And they're all painted like rainbow colors and stuff like that. So it'll give me a chance to use some colors you just don't get to bust out that often.
Let's see what's next on the list. Blood Red. I played Blood Red Skies again. I mentioned that. Relearned some of the rules that I had been screwing up, and bought more planes for that. So, Jordan, you got some Warcaster in.
Yep.
That's something that we saw first on the table at WinterCon before Patrick abandoned us back to his socialist utopia.
I wouldn't say I got a lot in, and it's not I don't know. It's a pretty quick, easy, dirty game. Like the rule book itself is like 10 pages. And then with the miniatures themselves, you have unit cards. So like the special rules are actually on the cards rather than the rule book. And then it's being Warcaster. Of course, you're going to have a Warcaster, but it's a really rule set wise. It's very dumbed down wargaming, but the flow of the game and kind of the speed of it actually does it. With the death and redeployment and bounce back, it actually creates a lot of quick, hard tactical decisions of how, who to go in with first, who to let die, and forging ahead to be able to redeploy. Because you place out these gates as you move up across the board. And those gates are then models that you can eliminate just like anything else. So you have your warjacks, your warcaster, and then your kind of basic foot soldiers, and they have different costs. So your warcaster and your warjacks, those are called solo units, and each turn has a bunch of sub-turns. But each activation, you can activate one solo and one group unit, like a squad-based unit and a solo unit. And your warjacks and your warcasters, your solos tend to be a lot more powerful. So you can't double up and have just those guys. You actually have to balance it out. The games I've played were kind of take and hold victory point locations, and there were scoring turns. So it's similar to Drop Fleet, where there's specific turns you want to hold specific locations. But you could literally, never playing the game before, you could read the rule book, get presented the cards, and be playing and not be lost and not even necessarily be outwitted that much by your opponent in less than 30 minutes.
That's nice.
I'm not entirely sure how I completely feel about the game because there is so much pushback. It feels like there's almost a lack of punishment for having your models get eliminated. But that's more of a psychological hurdle for me, I think, than this on the game.
Does it seem like it's something that's going to be as crazily competitive as War Machine is, or is it a lot more casual?
I never played War Machine enough. I know that game was kind of full of a bunch of gotchas. And that's kind of a negative that a lot of people don't like about War Machine. as arcadey as this is, there's no real gotchas, because as soon as your model dies, say you're playing like a 10-point game. Like, so your warjack would be worth 3 points, your warcaster's worth 2 points, and all these foot soldiers are worth 1. You're only deploying 3 or 4 points out of those 10 a turn, and you might max at like 7, let's say. So you aren't even necessarily going to field all your models that you brought to the table. It's going to be fluid about which ones you pick. So I guess if you're looking at simplistic rules on a model, it's not like there's in-depth crazy amounts of rules for a specific model in any war game. So being that you're using special D6s that have, differing values on it than a standard D6, because there's a lack of numbers doesn't necessarily make it less robust. Just makes it easier to understand at the beginning.
So what faction are you buying into?
Nothing yet. Aaron's got 2. We'll see when I run out of models to paint first.
So never, you're saying?
Maybe. Because it was it just finished up its second Kickstarter.
Yeah, I saw that. It's vehicles, right?
Vehicles, new faction.
Gotcha.
But it was also a re-release of everything else too. So you could get everything that was available in the first, you could get in the second, I think.
So you also played BattleTech, you said?
Yes. Actually played that with Aaron more frequently than...
Did you actually use BattleTech models, or did you finally get a use for your Cav models?
No, I'm using his BattleTech model. Because he has lots of BattleTech models. Not as many Cav models as I have, but...
You have a lot of Cav models.
Well, I backed 3 Cav Kickstarters.
I wanted that dropship so bad for Drop Zone. It never came out.
You backed 3 of them? Jesus, Jordan.
I didn't go like that far in.
It was just a tip.
I mean, it was like $100 each time. And I have like, I don't know, 300 mechs now because it's like $1 a model. I mean, the price was too good. I couldn't not get it to that at that point. Now a couple of those,
the price was
go, and I had a lot more disposable income at that point in time.
I like crack. What can I say?
And
it was crack, and it was good.
I didn't go crazy into them, but it was a Kickstarter that Reaper was doing, and I like Reaper, and I just decided, hey, this is not an expensive Kickstarter. I'm going to support them. And now it's kind of not Reaper miniatures anymore.
Are the Cav people different now?
Yes. So I don't know if the guy used to work for him, but the rule set and the rights to the models were sold to Talon Games. But the model production is still done through Reaper.
Okay. Has there been any kind of change in the gameplay at all since they transferred over?
I only own the most recent edition of Cav Rules. So when they went to Bones Material with Cav, they went to this newest rule set. I've actually never learned to play it. It's just models that are in boxes for me. If if you are comparing it to BattleTech, so there's old standard BattleTech that's from the 80s. It's had thousands of rule books and evolved, but it's essentially the same old BattleTech. But miniatures production for new BattleTech miniatures, the rights are really weird for various reasons. But Catalyst is who's making all the new models, but they're officially for a game called Alpha Strike.
I was about to say the Alpha Strike models look sharp.
So the Alpha Strike models, since the Catalyst can make rules for BattleTech, they can make models for Alpha Strike, and somehow they can have BattleTech cards for Alpha Strike models. So
that's related somehow to the Robotech bullshit, right? I mean, that's Harmony Gold.
No, it is not actually
really
bullshit. No, this is
that's a surprise.
This is more related to FASA and FASA Interactive separating, and the models being Ralpartha and Ralpartha dying, and FASA got partially bought by Microsoft and partially bought by a couple different holding companies. It was kind of like Topps baseball cards, which holding companies for them have changed since then anyway. But that company is still the official owner of the tabletop BattleTech.
Do people still buy baseball cards?
I don't know. So, like, I don't even know that the companies that make this stuff officially can keep all the intellectual property rights for BattleTech straight, let alone that someone who doesn't really care about BattleTech as much as some others.
Well, people still collect baseball cards, but there's like no chance of them being as good, like valuable as they used to be. So it's more of a if you kind of want it sort of a thing.
But back to the comparison. So this actually relates back to the whole Warcaster versus War Machine thing. I think one system's a lot more rules heavy, and the other system's a lot more rules light. Whereas you have, everything can fit on a baseball card, stat card, versus having to have a 400-page book out. BattleTech is going to other crazy ends where you have 15 different areas that can get damaged on your mech, and you have to blow through 2 layers of armor on any specific.
And then track potential criticals, and then ammo explosions and heat sink ruptures. And I've played BattleTech.
Whereas Alpha Strike.
Did you shoot it and it dies?
Yeah, it's got an attack value, a defense value, a move value, and an armor value.
Yeah.
And it might have like 4 check boxes for hits after you get through the armor. Yeah,
Alpha Strike I thought was more about lance combat, whereas BattleTech's more like mech combat, one-on-one mech combat.
All the BattleTech that I've played with Aaron has been lance on lance.
Oh, maybe Alpha Strike is more than a single lance on lance.
I think maybe so. Like it's you have, instead of 4 to 6 models per side, you're going to have 10 to 20.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen,
but Cav is supposed to be more of or Alpha Strike might be more of a Cav clone. I don't know which came out first. Is what I've heard. So.
Well, gentlemen, we're running a bit long in the tooth for our first episode back here. I think we've covered a lot of various ground, and we should probably consider coming back and look at maybe some of these points a little more in depth in future episodes.
Yeah, one thing I'll leave a question out there for the community. Do some community interaction today.
Yes,
and,
listener.
See if
all two of you that listen to this.
One thing that'd be kind of cool to bring into our episodes here is a little bit of a Kickstarter suggestion. Like individually, we can each kind of like cover a Kickstarter we saw that we thought was kind of cool.
I don't think Kickstarters are cool. I think they're cash grabs. Can we include HasLab, like Hasbro Pulse stuff?
I guess.
I backed HeroQuest and I backed out of backing HeroQuest.
I'll say crowdfunded. How about that? You son of a bitch.
Sure.
No,
sorry to be brand specific, but
no hard feelings. Got to include Indiegogo.
Yeah.
So to support our friend Andy, Chip Theory launched a Kickstarter today.
Yep, they sure did.
Games launched a Kickstarter too.
Who did?
Lee did the Gaddis Tabletoppers.
Oh, did he? I didn't even see that.
He launched some type of World War II game. You back it high enough, there's a 2-player starter. You get like a 156 Sherman and some troops. And it's a World War II game of some type. I hearted it, but I haven't had a chance to look at it very closely. But
he's been producing models for World War II games for a while now.
So I did. I clicked through a link that he had posted about the. I think it was prepping for that Kickstarter, and has something to do with celebrating men of color in a miniature game. I think is kind of the direction it was going.
Cool. I didn't get a chance to look too closely at the details, but I don't know how many men of color there were in Nazi Germany. Because half of the starter set's Nazis.
Right.
But I don't care what color you are. Shooting Nazis is a good thing.
I mean, there was plenty of African Americans that served. So
there were.
And then we're talking about Sikhs and all kinds of different people.
Yeah. There was.
And we can all collectively sit here and say Nazis are bad, right? There's no question about denouncing white supremacy on the Band Value One podcast, is there?
I was told there's very fine people on both sides. So,
you know what, Don? I wish I could be that optimistic because I'm thinking there are fuckers on both sides of that.
All Nazis may have been white, but all whites may not have been Nazis.
We had to go there. We had to end this with being offensive and political. God damn us. There goes our listener now.
'Tis the season.
Happy holidays, guys.
So, but we didn't mention the Chip Theory's we just said it that they had one.
Hey,
it's called
Chesney doesn't sponsor this thing.
No, but he's a friend, so shut your mouth. It's called Burn Cycle. It is about a futuristic game where robots essentially save the planet, but then humans come back and decide to fuck it all up again. And so you're playing as robots that are trying to survive human stupidity.
So do you get to play as robots that wipe out humanity? Because I might be a little more down for that.
You're playing as a half broken down robot that needs to steal parts from the evil cyberpunk style corporation. You have to kind of sneak in and hack your way into getting the right security to stop these mega corporations from destroying the world.
As a half broken down human, I can almost relate to this.
At least that's the gist I got from the 2-minute video that they have on the top of the Kickstarter page. So,
and what's that called again? What's the game called again?
Sorry, the kid my son was complaining
Burn
about
Cycle?
Burn Cycle.
Burn Cycle. It is a short Kickstarter, actually. It started today, and I think it's only going like 9 days. So,
well, then I should probably get this episode in the can and out as quick as possible.
Correct. So if you're
And
familiar
Chesney
with-
can give us some of that fat Kickstarter money.
That's right, sponsorship money for the.
Pay up, Ches.
What does it cost us? Like $20 a year to run this podcast.
No, it does not. It costs us a little more than that.
A person.
That costs us about $20 a piece to run this podcast a year.
We took good advantage of it this year, didn't we?
Yeah, we screwed the pooch this year. All right, guys, we're coming past the 90-minute mark here, so I think this is a good place to wrap up.
So I think we built up enough stuff, and I think going in the future here, I know we've said it before, but we're going to open up to more games and things like that. So I think our conversations are going to become, hopefully becoming a bit sooner. And then, let's see, April, what is that, like 7 months difference?
6 months. Oh,
6
yeah,
months?
Jesus, it's November. Yeah, this will be the 7th month, November or April 10th. Yeah, it's been exactly 7 months since we last recorded a podcast together. So
yep, we will try to entertain you with a broader spectrum of things to talk about.
yeah, so go ahead and hop on over to the Facebook page if you're not already a member of the Command Value 1 group. Hop on in there. Let us know what you want to hear us talk about. Guide the conversation a little bit. If there's a game that we've mentioned tonight that you'd like us to go into a little more detail on, or if we've done any video content for, just let us know what you're interested in, and we'll see if we can acquiesce to your requests. Jordan, do you have anything else you'd like to say tonight?
No, I'm good.
Donald, is there anything else you'd like to say tonight?
Stay safe.
Gentlemen, it has been a pleasure to spend the evening with you. We should do this again more often.
We totally should. Instead of talking about doing it for 4 months and not.
I'd like to point out somehow, like, this all falls on my shoulders. Okay, I say I have open availability, and then somehow I'm the fault we don't record.
You know what? I would like to blame this all on Don, too. All right, gentlemen. Well, have a pleasant evening, and we'll talk again sooner than later.
All right, bye.
Asta.